can fit it in any way you want. We have another one here, so everybody can sit, which I think is a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I like how you guys read out information for your meetings too. So don't say anything you're not going to take back.
Everybody got to see. Is this anything that there's coffee and stuff? Everybody needs anything?
Water.
Water, coffee,
Water,
pastries. Again, really appreciate you joining us for this. What you got to say.
So, I want to say a couple of words before I turn it to the project team. I know some of you are very familiar with the chill water program, and some of you may not be. So if anyone has any questions about what we do and why we do it, I'd be happy to answer. I didn't prepare anything. Big silence is, yes ma'am.
We have 3 chilled water plants in Austin, or how many?
Well, the program, we have 2 plants downtown, one at 300 San Antonio, one at 410 Sabine. Those 2 plants work together and serve the central business district. We also have a system out at the Domain, and we have a system out at Mill. Okay. But by far, downtown is much larger than those other 2. In fact, we have 69 customers total. 45 of those customers are downtown.
Yeah, that serves our building, of course, these days.
Yeah.
Yes. And we serve almost 19 million square feet of buildings, which is a lot of buildings. I put it in context of City Hall, it's like 135 city halls.
So the 2 that are downtown are the first 2 in Austin?
The one at 300 San Antonio was the first one, yes. And you know what we do, air conditioning takes up a lot of electricity. In fact, for buildings in this climate, it's like 50% of the annual electric budget goes to drive an air conditioning system. So since we're with Austin Energy, we're definitely interested in how can we capture that significant chunk of energy, bring it into our plants. And all of our plants have this thing called thermal energy storage, where our equipment runs at night. Electricity is more plentiful and less expensive. And then in the afternoons, when everyone else is using electricity, we get to turn our stuff off. We coast on that ice tank and able to serve our customers. And so last summer, as an example, we shifted 17 megawatts of power off of Austin Energy's peak. And that's important because Austin Energy pays ERCOT like $45,000 for every megawatt, where we pay our pro rata share of the load, and so it's valued about $45,000. And so we shifted, a significant chunk of electricity. It saves Austin Energy money, but ultimately, it saves the electric ratepayers, all the electric ratepayers. None of that money stays at Austin Energy. It all shows up on your regulatory charge, the demand shift part, and then just the notion that generally speaking, electricity is much less expensive at night when the market's low, and so those more inefficient plants are not running. And a big chunk of it is wind power from West Texas. So we're able to utilize that and leverage the difference between buying power night and day, and that's called market savings, and that also shows up on everybody's electric bill. So that's what we do. We've been doing it for 17 years. Program continues to grow, and we've been able to ride the last 2 development cycles and been really fortunate to be where we are.
I think it's worth maybe describing just in very general brief terms how it works. Like at the Plaza Lofts, we've got our own loop inside the building, and then there's the city loop, and there's a heat exchanger in between, right?
True.
That actually does the cooling, and then there's heat exchangers, I guess, for each unit inside my building,
Right.
or air conditioning units inside my building that use the chilled water from the loop to cool the unit.
Exactly. If you weren't on the loop, your building, this building, Plaza Lofts, and these other buildings would have a chiller, a big chunk of iron, uses a lot of electricity. It'd have a chiller in the basement. It'd have a cooling tower somewhere up on the roof, and that's just a refrigeration cycle. It makes cold water. It then gets circulated to your fan coils, conditions the air, and regulates the space. So with district energy, you don't have chillers. You have that plate frame heat exchanger. And we're giving you water at 44, I think, 44 degrees, and you're putting heat into it, and it crosses the heat exchanger and comes back into our return, goes back to our plant, we cool it, it just goes round and round, it's a closed loop cycle.
So the plaza is on the system.
Yes.
Plaza was one of our very, I'm gonna say they were number 2 or 3 customer, they were very early.
What big buildings are on the system?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Which of the larger buildings are on the system?
Somebody help
Well,
me.
this, okay, so the W, the City Hall, both of the Silicon, they're not called Silicon Labs. Plaza Lofts, 360, Spring, Four Seasons Residences.
Convention Center.
Was it after a certain year? As of 1990?
Oh, when our program started, like in 2000?
Yeah, buildings.
Not necessarily, because buildings pop into it.
Oh,
Right.
There's an agreement, a rate agreement that's made with Boston Energy, and some developers, at some period, particularly initially, were
Right.
a little skeptical and didn't get in. But the city jump-started the program, and it's been
Now
super
he's pretty much
successful.
active.
Yeah.
The independent and the buoy.
Not the buoy.
System, Estonian, well, not the buoy.
The Seahome High Rise, the Independent will be Whole Foods,
Whole Foods, the store, the tower, and the refrigeration cases.
The library.
Zom, the library, the Green Office Building,
And you said Zaza.
Zom.
Oh,
Is that what you call it?
Hotel Zaza.
No, Monarch Zaza is not taking
Oh, it's
it.
not. Why would they decide, I mean, what's the bottom line if you quantified it? I know when we moved in, and we moved to a smaller place, but we went from a traditional $400 a month electric water bill to less than $100. That was, no one even mentioned that, that's a giant selling point. Is there a kind of a number like that when you go from, if you're using the chilled water versus the old way, is there?
It's more expensive at the Four Seasons than it was.
Ultimately, it becomes an economic decision from the
4,500
developer. And the way our pricing structure is set up, we have 2 elements in the bill, and one is consumption. And it's just what it costs us to make it.
Right.
Plus 7% operating margin. So that's what we charge for consumption. But we also have to recover our connection costs. And so if we run pipes 3 blocks in the central business district, frankly, 3 blocks, it's probably not gonna happen, because that's like a $6, $7, $8 million spend.
Sure.
And so we have to recover that capital expenditure also. And so we recover that in 15 years. So what it ends up doing is driving larger buildings to be on the system rather than small, and driving buildings that have proximity to the existing infrastructure rather than be far away.
Okay, so that's a helpful introduction. Are we ready to dive into the specification now?
I am.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, so we put this little book together for you with some nice photographs in it. So this first one is just a location map that shows you the small little crescent site that we, also Energy purchased from the Economic Development Department back in 2013. And I think some of y'all are aware we got it rezoned to P, public zoning, with the intent of putting this district cooling plant there. The tract, this tract has been owned by the city for a really long time, and its original intention is that it was going to be used for a parking garage. Economic Development was going to build a parking garage there to go with the Seahome district. Well, you can see the funny little shape and small size. Actually, this, now that I'm looking at this red, it's actually making it look bigger than it is because it doesn't go all the way to the railroad track, the property line. Anyway, Economic Development determined that it wasn't feasible to build a parking garage on it, so we purchased it from them. They used the money to invest in the parking garage in the Seahome district to put more parking spaces over there. So it's kind of tucked back in there in the curve of the railroad track next to the Gables parking garage. And then Phil, I'll let you go next. These next slides are Phil's great work.
Well, can we jump forward? I think there's a plan, if you don't mind.
Page 10.
Yeah, let's go kind of toward the end to this drawing. This is seal drawing. And so what we're looking at are configuration of the building has two parts. I don't remember where it faced, but so the back part is toward the river is essentially a bunch of cooling towers, big stainless steel boxes with fans on them. And then the northern part of the building up here is a kind of concrete vault that has all of the chillers in it. So these are big things that make a lot of noise, and we use acoustical doors and shut them, everything up with a vestibule lock, so that there's a sound lock. And our office has done a couple of these. We did one up at University of Texas at Dallas, not configured like this, but we have some experience with them. And that building is, it's got a couple of stories, couple of levels, and it's just machinery. There's not even an occupied use in it. People come and look at it once a day and check the equipment. But the fire department required a drive lane between the Gables garage, this little kind of area here, and our building, so that they could get fire trucks in and out, which meant we had about 30 feet to work with in width. So it's just this long thing. And then just kind of describing the form of it. And so the other thing that's going on over here, is from here to here, there's a Capitol View corridor from the bridge over Barton Springs. I think that's one. So it's a narrow, very low.
Oh, that's shaded.
Yeah.
Going north.
That guy right there. And so I don't know the exact elevation that we're at, because it's different on every corner as it comes over at a slightly elevated plane, but it's about 20 feet or something like that we could get out of just this part of the building. And then the part that's not encumbered by that is still Austin Energy's property, is this part down at the end by Sandra Muraida. So we have a little piece of it outside of the Capitol View corridor where we can go up. And we took advantage of that. So we popped the building up, we had some stairs going up, we have some mechanical equipment, and it seems like an ever-changing arrangement of pipes and things like that that go up a little higher than the rest of the building, which was crushed by this Capitol View corridor. So now let's go back.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is there any reason you can't go underground more?
It was looked at, and there's various things that made sense being down there, and the chillers themselves apparently don't make any sense being down there. They have to occasionally be removed. They're super heavy. You have to get, each one of them has a door and a kind of an area where we can go in and maintain them and pull the pump off and pull them apart. And that is the primary use of that building. So it was looked at where we did dig a hole in our minds very initially and ran through some scenarios where those chillers would be lower and the cooling towers would be on top. That got too tall for the Capitol View corridor unless we just buried the whole thing, which would have been quite prohibitive. The other thing that's that we bumped into was that, I'm not going to be able to explain this well because I don't understand it well, but the railroad, when the train moves around on the track, has a certain, there's a structural repercussion of that. And so the railroad requires reinforcing within everything, even beyond their property line. So if you drew an imaginary line down that hillside, and it's actually kind of buried into the hillside a little bit, down into the ground, everything that line crosses has to be like super structured. And am I getting this right? So it affects a lot of our piers that hits. And if we put a building down there, it had to be this like, super building.
It's still railroad right of way then, beneath the ground?
If you ask them,
Yeah.
they'll say
Right.
We're having trouble getting just a small retaining wall along our property line.
Really?
And they have to approve everything that we do, and they're not being super prompt about their approval.
They're just kind of jerks. Well, I've worked with them for 30 years.
It's,
They just have this sort of, we're the railroad.
You were here first. Yeah.
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 Exactly.
They will tell you that very quickly.
Yeah.
The railroad was here
Just-
first.
And just as a total aside, if you look at that drawing that we were looking at, the end of Sandra Muraida, I'm sure you guys know this, there's this buoy underpass project that's going on too. And that was supposed to be out in front of us, and our design at this east end was going to kind of marry all into that. We've got a little parky kind of area that is very small that was going to, accept that topography with a little, stone wall and things like that. And everyone's having so much trouble getting that bridge built because the railroad said it was going to cost X, and then when the city said, okay, we'll give you this money, you can build the bridge, they said, you know what, it's a little more than that. And the price went up.
We're just going to have to organize against the railroad.
And so we don't even know what's going on with that now. We thought that was going to be in front of us. We had all these construction issues about them building that while we were doing this, and apparently we're not. So,
Are you hearing that it's alive, dead?
I'm hearing that it's alive.
It's alive. My understanding is that the city went back and got another appraisal to see if
It really
they
is going
could
to cost them.
pay more,
Yeah.
but it would have to go back to council. So it was kind of thing that council approved a certain amount, then they wanted more. So it's been held up for about 3 years
Yeah.
now.
And that's kind of the neatest thing going on in this area.
We were real excited about it. It makes a big difference for the spring, because otherwise, you gotta walk across the tracks at where it doesn't, it's not supposed to, or
Right.
go around by sea.
And just while we're talking about it, it's the way the building's used, because you can see that this drive connects up to Sandra Muraida. We have a gate, kind of good-looking gate. I wish this was a little bigger. It's right kind of up at Sandra Muraida. About halfway up our building, there's another gate. So essentially, people can't walk through that. This is with the, both to kind of keep the public out and to reinforce this connection up through the pedestrian underpass. But once a week maybe, or maybe every couple of days, there are delivery trucks that will be here. And the instructions so far with that, they're not supposed to make a loop there. They're going to come in and exit, is my understanding. And even, and particularly during the construction of it, I think we have permission at this point to have smaller vehicles at certain times go through, but with a real consciousness of, there's a lot of traffic, a couple of parking garages that empty in the Sandra Muraida, certain times of day are not good, they always have to flag man and things like that. So there's been some pretty good negotiations about what to do just during the construction process. But during the year, it's very light traffic in and out of it. I think, we're talking about maybe somebody coming in a pickup truck once a day kind of thing.
Just to wrap up the
Yeah.
buoy underpass, there's nothing about the chiller project that's going to interfere in any way with the eventual construction of the underpass if that moves forward.
Exactly, and in fact, what we were trying to do was anticipate it
Okay.
and kind of deal with it. There's a very sharp topography. There's a drop right there, and so we have a design. We kind of have two, depending on who went first, of how to deal with the edge of that as it comes down to grade.
And we actually gave them an easement. So there is an easement on the north end of our property. You can see the property corner is right over here. So Austin Energy has granted an easement for them to.
And in addition to that easement, when you see the north elevation, it looks kind of plain right now because it's anticipated that it will coordinate with the tree.
Yeah. To go back to some of these images, here's one looking from the park, and just to describe the building itself, this is the building that has all of the cooling towers in it. So inside that rectangle are these big stainless steel boxes that are hollow and water drills through them and a fan blows out the top. You know, certain times of day, it's chilly outside, or I forget how it actually works, you'll see a little plume of vapor out the top. Airflow side to side is really important, so we've got both, and I'm sure you guys want to talk about sound later, but we've got acoustical louvers as the first layer, and then we've got these kind of very tall bent steel pieces that are kind of, I think will look a little elegant on there, that hide those louvers so you don't see the kind of industrialness of the louver, and they also do a little bit of sound deflection too. So we've got that on both sides, all the way up and down that first half of the building. There's a little overhang here. There's right in front of it. It's not shown in the image, but there's a little pocket park that we're going to put in and hopefully have some. We might have artwork there. We'll talk about that too. If it ends up that the art is someplace else, as directed by the design commission, we would have a little pocket park that would have, you know, dog watering stations and places to sit and kind of cool stuff like that.
Where was that? I'm sorry.
And that's right.
Right in the front
Right
of
in
the,
front.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like a little 20 feet by 40 feet.
Just inside the.
Yeah, it's about the size.
Traffic.
It's basically like in the right of way in front of the building.
Oh, great.
Right, you have an update, are we clear now that there's gonna be artwork here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Oh,
We-
great.
You weren't there at last week's
I
meeting.
know. I was in Colorado.
Yeah. So yeah, the artist Bailey, we got some information about her in here too. Bailey Lou is the artist that's been selected to do this, and she came and met with us last week. Phil was on vacation, and was saying that, yes, her interest was designing something for that plaza.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the right of way. If you look back at the site plan, you can see where the property line is right there. Okay, so it's that little piece that's in the right of way. That's basically, it's 20 feet deep and about 40 feet wide. So that's a little place where we have to do some landscaping, art, things like that.
Yeah. You know, unfortunately, in the foreground of the picture, but right across the street in the park, there's a lot of kind of big mechanical, electrical, transformer stuff like that. But I think this is going to be a real nice little spot right there. It's super visible, and it's kind of something we've always imagined. Here's a really great tableau for the artist working. The rest of the building is going to be clad in it's a clay tile. They're pretty big. It's about like that. It's a roofing tile. We've used it. If you wanted to see it, you can go to the intersection of MLK and Guadalupe and look kind of into West Campus, and you'll see an orange clay tile building that we did some years ago for College Houses Co-op. It's about 6 or 7 stories tall, and we're working with them right now because Austin Energy's color is blue. We're working on a kind of a field of several different blues and custom-made tiles with them that looks sort of like that. It might be a little lighter in color. Then let's look at come back and so this guy, and you see the whole length of the building. That you can tell that just from northwest of the site, looking over the railroad, and you can see the taller end where we're unencumbered. Yeah, the rest of it, it's so buried that the top of the railroad, it's not that much higher, maybe one residential story higher than the railroad itself. But that's the end that has that's the big concrete vault that has the chillers in it. There's a big pump room up above the chillers that are pumping the water through all the pipes and everything, and a big area with just electrical transformers and things like that. The blue end is just an emergency stair, an exit stair, and then the stainless steel part is an enclosure that's going to have this building's mechanical system, because it has to have one too.
Right.
Or it gets really hot. And, a few other things, control and things like that. And you can just see the other cooling tower part of the building here. There's a little connection between them. Got a stair in it and things like that. So it's a pretty simple building. Looking at it from, I think that last image just kind of shows it from the north. You're just looking at the stair tower, the little slit window in it, the blue tile, the stainless steel at this point now forms the roof and kind of comes down one side. I think, for a very utilitarian building, it's going to be a nice little addition to. These guys have been great clients, and I think when they look at the skin, they think, well, that's such a small part of the whole overall, and it's in kind of an important place, and I just realize that. So we've got real careful about what it looks like when you're looking down on it, so that there's not just like a dirty flat white roof or something like that. It's going to have a very nice stainless steel roof that's a kind of forever roof and will always look clean. And
Not staying, that's what I see down and
yeah. And
But when you say stainless steel, it isn't going to reflect light.
you can dull it,
Okay.
which is what we're going to do.
Okay.
But sure, that's like a countertop. In some ways you look at it, it's more shiny than other ways, but we're going to dull it up. We need the stainless steel to kind of make it a forever roof.
Okay.
And so
you just don't want to go up there barefoot.
probably not.
I'm just curious, I'm not a sound engineer, but could this actually deflect some of the noise from the train coming by? Away from the building?
It's conceivable. I went out with an app on my phone and was just checking, and that train's loud.
It's really.
We were just talking about
And while I was doing it, I kind of held it up, and I was standing there, and the guy pulled his horn, just knocked me off my feet. I got all those numbers.
Did you see was he laughing?
He was laughing.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I was up on the way, and he just, and anyway, it might help a little bit for the lower levels, but I doubt it would help much for someone up in a tower or something like that. That train just kind of emits so much. But
We can certainly ask Ken Dickensheets, our sound engineer, to, I understand your question to be, is the sound of the train going to reflect off of our building and bounce back?
Or what is it going to do? I mean, it sounds like, is there any
The
chance?
potential for all of a sudden
Yeah.
focused it or something.
Yeah.
You might mention that you went to the design commission, the downtown commission, 30% design, even though we're not required to. We took it, feedback.
yeah,
And we'll be back.
and that was great. Kristen, I was on the design commission for 10 years and worked on downtown issues, that during a very hot part of Boston's development. And so was anxious to bring it back to the folks there. And they had some, great comments about how to treat the building. It's morphed a little bit since we took it to them, just because, it has to serve a primary engineering function, and at some point someone says, well, the pumps really need to be over here, and then the building shifts around a little bit. But they had some great comments, and we're responding to all that. If our art is going down on the south side, that's going to solve some great part of the concerns. I think they're really interested in what happened, in that face right there.
So does most of the noise come from the part of the building that's closest to the park in front of the gables towards Cesar Chavez, or does it come from the cooling tower part of the building?
That is the cooling tower.
Yeah.
And
So
then
the cooling tower that's closest to Spring,
No,
the other part.
this part is closest to the park, has the cooling towers just
That's
lined
the
up there.
loudest mechanical, I mean, I'm not an
It
engineer,
is.
but
It is.
Yeah, you can see, there's a little graph here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
You
we
can
got
see
some graphics.
this cooling tower part. So this is, I guess, This is Santa Muraida here, and then this is the Seaholm Drive, or not the
Right.
Seaholm Drive. This is, but this is the park right here, right, where the open room.
Okay,
So
yeah.
this is the lattice part.
Yeah, this is Electric
Okay.
Drive, so that's the cooling
Yeah.
tower, and the
Oh,
park's over
okay.
here, Sandra Muraida here. So, yeah, that's. the-
Okay,
Which almost looks like the gables blocks that sound.
It's right up next to the garage, but yeah.
Right, yeah, if you look at both of these exhibits, so you got
Right.
the one that comes up that shows you kind of how, so basically the sound coming up out of the top of the cooling tower, so we talked about those louvers, right? So we are installing louvers on the side of the cooling towers to stop the sound coming out the sides. But when you get on the top, you've got the fans that are blowing up on the top, so you get this little bubble up above it here of that sound, which is at 73, and this down here is at 67. And then you can see the green line, which then starts spreading out, is at 49 dBA.
Yeah.
So I know there was a letter from Dana that had requested 50 dBA, and I can't remember whether that, I think it said at the residences, and so we are below that at 49 at the Gables residence here, and then it doesn't even go over to Seaholm High Rise or over to the Spring. Doesn't even get that far. So basically the loudest point is going to be on top of the Gables parking garage right here, and it's because no matter where you put the top of that cooling tower, that sound is still going to come out the top
From the fans.
from the fans.
Yeah.
So,
And what, are those running 24/7, or what are the fans?
This is considered a peaker plant, so it's gonna run as we need it to satisfy load.
So it's not constant, right?
And your need isn't necessarily when it's hot because of the, you said you do it at night so that you can store it and use it during the day and stuff.
Yes.
So
Yeah, there's not thermal storage at this one, because we're long on storage at the other two, so this will help us bridge the early evening.
Oh, okay.
Question in comparison to the one located on San Antonio Street, how do y'all expect the two to compare?
This one's, have we ever taken meetings at 300? I'm not aware of it.
I don't know. I think Michelle has, but
This one's designed to be a lot more quiet, a lot quieter. We made a commitment to council to be at 70 dBA. That was somewhat of an arbitrary number that we picked out of it's what's required in SF5 zoning. So 70 dBA is when you're in the suburbs or anywhere with single family, and that's the sound of your neighbor's air conditioner in your backyard. And so that's 70. We picked that as a challenge to be at. Dana challenged us to be at 50. I didn't ever agree to that. I told council I didn't think we could get there. I mean, that's 70. 50 is a quarter of the energy of 70, as it turns out. It's with the scale, lovely scale.
Yeah.
So our goal was to be at 70 at the property line. We're a little over 70, and Carol pointed out in a little pocket there bouncing off the Gables garage. But other than that, we're below 70, and sound dissipates as it gets further from the source. And so as Carol noted, our sound guy says it's not going to be perceptible at Spring or any of the other neighbors.
I'm not sure I followed the storage comments. So will this be running primarily during the day or night?
It's kind of depends, and it's a seasonal thing. I will say that the reason we needed this plant, we started out with these plants that made chill water and ice, and with the notion that our customers were mostly office buildings. And so the way the world works, it ended up we have much more residential. We serve so many hotels now that are more 24/7. And so we'll find ourselves in the year 2020 not being able to make a full tank of ice at the existing plants and satisfy our customer loads. So this plant is likely to run in the early evenings up to 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, but then not beyond that is the expectation.
Oh, and this is just for y'all's information or thoughts, when y'all plan for future, plans. I don't see any potential difficulties with where this is situated, just because I don't think there's a lot of land to be developed or that can be developed in the area. But just going forward, I know that when y'all are taking y'all's measurements and projections, to think about what undeveloped land is around the area and also the building height. And I only say that because you made this comment that, as you get further away from the source, the sound dissipates. Not all the times, only because depending on what's built after the fact, if it's tall buildings, it's going to create that funnel. And I just thinking about what's gone on in the downtown area now with more high rises and smaller, music venues, and how as a neighborhood we battle with that. Just to think about that going further. I don't again foresee any issue, just because I don't think that there can be much development around this, but to be in consideration of, okay, future developers, you have to know that we were here first, or going into future development, that statement may not always be true, just because. But
I think you're exactly right. And when we think about future, this will be the last plant to serve the central business district, probably. Should the convention center expansion go forward, we've talked to their management about putting a plant in that expansion. But beyond that, our future looks to be things like the South Central waterfront and serving central health. And we've recently, we're working on a deal, and council approved us to design a plan for the Highland Mall to serve Austin Community College. So we're kind of moving more out of the central business district, even though there's a nice load here and we like it. We're kind of saturated. And to the extent, to your comment too, us even finding a location is really, really difficult. I mean, the property value is so high. And so we felt like this was a site that was small enough and complicated and cumbersome enough for anything else to go there.
Right.
And we thought, well, heck, we'll take it. And then we challenged the design team to figure out how to make it work.
And we've been following the agent of change issue you all are aware of. And you might think, well, why is Austin Energy interested in music? Because we're aware of this, the noise that is made downtown.
Yeah.
Mike and Dan, did y'all have any other concerns from the Springs perspective we haven't talked about?
Which this looks so thought out, and based assuming that the information, especially on sentence, is accurate. My impression is it's a very attractive facility, and it sounds like it's not very that intrusive. Of course, I don't know the Gables, but that's the way I want it.
Well, and we've already met with Jenny Webrand at the Gables. We've been communicating with her all along, and we've already provided all this information to her, met with her about the construction. She was real concerned about the construction traffic, and as Phil was saying, we've agreed that no loaded trucks will leave the site and go through Sandra Muraida, and if any trucks are leaving the site, it has to be after the peak time for the folks coming out of the garages there.
So will this facility be built similarly to how the library was built, or the library, through some interesting waiver, they allowed them 24-hour, 7-day-a-week concrete pour while they were pouring everything? And so
we don't imagine that much. We're not going to have that much.
I'm just curious.
Concrete.
Not near that size.
Yeah, that's you need that kind of continuous pour when you're building one of these really huge buildings. Normally you don't need a continuous pour like that, and just to judge from what I'm looking at here, they're not going to need that.
Well, the library has it's like a 5 or 6 foot thick mat slab.
And that's what you have to have a continuous pour, is a mat slab. If you don't have a mat slab,
But let's be clear about something. There's concrete in the building.
Yes.
And they like to pour that at night because they can drive.
Well, it's just that when the buoy was built, they did no 24-hour concrete pours for that entire building. None.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to build the building fast to make money. So I'm just saying that there are ways to build a building without having to have 24-hour. And I was asking because the library got some strange waiver because they're part of the city. And contrary to the other ordinances, And I was just curious because that's closer to us and concrete pour has always been an issue.
Well, what about the independent? So I'm working
Yeah.
with that building, and my understanding is that they do their concrete pours like between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m.
Yeah.
at night. Is that, are y'all hearing that at the
No,
spring?
that doesn't bother us.
It's just the trucks that line up on Third Street.
Right.
I think it's, yeah,
Right.
rather than engines is what I've always heard. The same with the new Whole Foods building. That has been the quietest.
Right.
I've watched both the buoy and that.
That's another one of our
And it
customers.
used to be that the pump part of the mechanism would make this clacking sound. And
Yeah.
Right.
It just kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
They've learned how to back it.